One, two, is this on?
Triple H has taken on many forms throughout his time in WWE, constantly switching up his gimmick to stay relevant. And although it took some time, Triple H has proven capable of adapting to different personas throughout his career and pulling them off like no other. From a blue blood to a degenerate, to the most evil and sadistic heel, all the way to lording over the WWE. Today, we'll highlight each one as we rank Triple H's most notorious incarnations over the years. Number 12, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, 1995 to 1997. Helmsley made his WWF debut in April 1995 after a series of vignettes aired depicting him as an aristocratic elitist.
Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Simply put, he was the snobby Connecticut blue blood. The whole presentation felt a bit corny and a few years out of date. The gimmick didn't do Hunter any favors, but the opportunity to wrestle on every show did. Helmsley worked a who's who of names ranging from Bret Hart to Shawn Michaels to The Undertaker. Helmsley continued to impress, wrestling an old school style that was far more methodical compared to his contemporaries.
Looking forward to this. Oh my! WWF.
Hunter was a student of the game and a model professional, which helped him make friends with some of the most talented men in the business, leading to the formation of the Clique. The Clique's friendship resulted in the infamous curtain call at Madison Square Garden, which Helmsley faced the brunt of the heat from. The punishment felt from this incident stalled his career somewhat, but Hunter maintained a good attitude, and his continued hard work resulted in him becoming Intercontinental Champion and King of the Ring. Helmsley began to shed the blue blood gimmick, and with Chyna by his side, he would only get better. The initial feud with Mick Foley gave the Hunter Hearst Helmsley character a tougher edge, as both were hungry to prove themselves in the WWF. Number 11, final run with DX. 2009 to 2010. Triple H had numerous runs as part of DX throughout his career, but it was the final run that proved to be the weakest. Hunter and Shawn would reunite one more time while still active members of the roster in 2009. The duo had to adjust to the now family-friendly PG WWE product.
Aren't you supposed to be Jamaican? What happened to your accent?
But this only led to a more watered down version of DX. They did still appear in a handful of good segments, but more often than not, this run just had fans wishing they were watching D-Generation X from the Attitude or even Ruthless Aggression era. The saving grace of this run, however, were the matches DX had on pay-per-view. Their rivalry with Legacy spawned 3 good matches and helped elevate both Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase. Michaels and Triple H ended 2009 with a strong triple threat match which included themselves and John Cena.
WWE Championship! Attitude adjustment!
They followed this up with an entertaining tag team TLC match where they defeated Big Show and Chris Jericho for the tag titles. Aside from the enjoyable pay-per-view matches, Triple H's 2009 run with DX was missing the spark that each of the group's previous incarnations had. Hunter and HBK's goofy antics were much cringier this time round, while their segments and promos just weren't that memorable. Aside from the matches, this run may have been lacking in terms of entertainment value, but it did prove successful from a business standpoint. DX's merchandise sold in great numbers, while pay-per-view buy rates increased from the previous year for 3 of the shows DX wrestled on, although the reliance on gimmick matches probably had more to do with that. Number 10, Corporate Ministry, 1999. After leading DX for a full year, Triple H would turn on the group at WrestleMania 15 by helping Shane McMahon defeat X-Pac. Hunter and Chyna would align with the corporation, which later merged with The Undertaker's ministry to become the Corporate Ministry.
It's the corporation and the Ministry of Darkness!
Helmsley now donned a different hairstyle, switched to wearing wrestling trunks, and debuted his iconic My Time entrance music. During this period, Hunter really began to hone in on his promo work. The famous interview with JR on Heat was proof. Here, Triple H talked about the frustration he felt from being punished for the curtain call, and how he channeled this anger into becoming the Game.
I am the game, JR.
It was clear Hunter wanted one thing, the WWF Championship, and he was going to step over and go through anyone he needed in order to capture the gold. In 1999, Helmsley would transition from an upper mid-card babyface to the top heel in the company. The Corporate Ministry began to reach a natural end when The Undertaker started a tag team with the Big Show, while Triple H was hell-bent on establishing himself as a main eventer. In the end, the combined Corporate Ministry faction never really clicked. The group was so big, meaning the spotlight couldn't always shine on Hunter. He was still able to thrive in his own segments though, and this would only continue once Triple H became the Game. Number 9, return and Undisputed Champion, 2002. Before being sidelined with a torn quadricep muscle back in 2001, Triple H had arguably been the most hated heel in wrestling for some time. However, upon his big return in January 2002, the Madison Square Garden crowd greeted Triple H with one of the loudest reactions ever heard in WWE. As a babyface, Hunter would go on to win the Royal Rumble, going on to WrestleMania 18 to defeat Chris Jericho for the Undisputed Championship. During the build-up, the once dominant McMahon-Helmsley faction would come to an end as Triple H and Stephanie's on-screen marriage was faltering, leading to Steph being dumped live on Raw when she and Hunter were meant to be renewing their wedding vows. The storyline with Stephanie overshadowed Jericho's involvement in the feud, while the WrestleMania match would also be overshadowed by Rock and Hogan going on before them and promptly stealing the show, leaving Hunter and Y2J to attempt to pick up the pieces, and while they still did have a decent match, it definitely shouldn't have gone on last as the main event. Triple H's momentum began to die down after WrestleMania as he quickly lost the WWE title and then had a forgettable feud with The Undertaker. The game's match quality also took a hit during this period, as he had ballooned in size in the time he was out with the injury. This meant he was more limited in the ring when compared to his performances in 2000 and 2001, where he wrestled great match after great match on pay-per-view. Number 8, Chief Operating Officer, 2011 to 2013. In Hunter's later career, he began to appear on TV less, now wrestling part-time, whilst taking on an executive role behind the scenes and then assuming a more authoritative role on screen. In 2011, after not wrestling for a year, Triple H returned to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania 27, with the story being that the dead man in the game were the two last outlaws after Taker had retired Shawn Michaels the previous year. In Atlanta, Taker and Triple H wrestled a match for the ages, topped off by a thrilling finish. Following the loss at Mania, Triple H became the Chief Operating Officer in the summer, relieving Vince McMahon of his day-to-day duties. Hunter became embroiled in a feud with CM Punk after Punk had been screwed out of the WWE title by Hunter's good friend, Kevin Nash. Punk and Triple H had some memorable promo exchanges.
I'm gonna step on you, I'm gonna walk through you to get to the top.
But the result of their pay-per-view match disappointed many, as the game came away with the win, which killed much of the momentum Punk had built up that summer. The entire roster would then walk out on Triple H, giving him a vote of no confidence, as he was replaced by John Laurinaitis. Triple H's role as an on-screen authority figure didn't work out the first time round. He did the best he could with the material he was given, but the creative just wasn't up to scratch. The game would step back in the ring to challenge The Undertaker one more time at WrestleMania in a match that was just as good as their one in the previous year, but it will be best remembered for the emotional aftermath where Taker, Hunter and Shawn embraced the end of an era. Then came an emotionally charged feud with Brock Lesnar, which led to 3 matches on pay-per-view.
He's gonna break his arm! He's gonna break his arm! Triple H tapped down!
And although Triple H was wrestling a few times each year, it was becoming more apparent just how big of a role he had behind the scenes, especially with the addition of NXT. Number 7, DX Reunion, 2006 to 2007. Following WrestleMania 22, Triple H would become involved with the Shawn Michaels feud versus the McMahons, which resulted in the reformation of D-Generation X, turning the game face for the first time in 4 years. The segment was one of the most iconic of the Ruthless Aggression era, and together as DX once again, Hunter and Shawn would create some more memorable moments in matches, whilst now being more established stars than they were in the Attitude era. Who could forget when they impersonated the McMahons and then dropped crap on them?
Stop it!
Or how about when they vandalized WWE headquarters? Now, not every gag hit the mark, but it was still great to see Michaels and Triple H back to their old selves as they fought off the McMahons and the Spirit Squad in some hilarious ways. Not to mention the stellar feud DX had with Rated RKO. The 2006 run was different from the original incarnation, as DX had initially been a group of rebels who were fighting against the regime, while this time around there were fewer members and it was hard to buy the anti-establishment aspect of the group's actions given Triple H and Michaels' positions in the company. That being said, Shawn and Hunter still caused management a lot of chaos, which made sense for HBK given the personal rivalry he'd been having with Vince and Shane, but once Triple H got involved, it became more of a comedy feud. Number 6, The King of Kings, 2006 to 2009. In 2006, Triple H first became the King of Kings when he wrestled John Cena in the WrestleMania 22 main event. Here, the cerebral assassin sat upon the throne accompanied by the awesome King of Kings entrance music, sung by Motorhead. This version of the game would last until June when Triple H reunited with Shawn Michaels. The run with DX came to an end after Hunter blew out his quad at the start of 2007, but once he was cleared to compete again, it was time for the King of Kings to return. King Booker was the perfect opponent to defeat.
One more time, Will Kennedy! Yes!
as Triple H was treated to a great reception and standing ovation by the commentators at SummerSlam. The question of whether the game was the best ever started to be raised by the announcers, and whether you believe this or not, there was no question the King of Kings was still at the top of his game, holding the WWE Championship for much of 2008 and being involved in a great feud against Jeff Hardy and Edge. But that was sandwiched in between two stinkers versing the Great Khali and Vladimir Kozlov. Perhaps Triple H's most memorable rivalry from this era came against Randy Orton. The build to their match at WrestleMania 25 was fantastic, as it featured some thrilling television. Once it was time for the two men to do battle on the big stage, Orton had taken out nearly all of the McMahon family, which added even more layers to the story. This made it all the more disappointing at how lackluster the eventual match was. Helmsley would have flashbacks to WrestleMania 18, as this time it was Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker's match that overshadowed the King of Kings main event victory. Number 5. Original D-Generation X, 1997 to 1998. Hunter had responded positively to the punishment he received from the curtain call, although the frustrations he felt from the incident were still kept inside him, waiting to burst out at a later date. Helmsley's good buddy Shawn Michaels was still one of the top guys in the company, and the two's off-screen friendship was now about to be showcased on television. They joined forces along with Rick Rude in China to form D-Generation X. DX's rebellious attitude quickly gained popularity.
Well, this is one clique that you are never gonna break up.
And the hilarious behavior was a treat to watch.
Sean and I both got jumbo weenies.
Fans just couldn't wait to see what they were going to do next, as every week they came up with new ways to entertain the audience, while making fun of just about everyone.
Ain't that funny?
Hunter Hearst Helmsley would adopt the Triple H name permanently, while being able to show much more of his personality. The aristocratic blue blood was thankfully dead and gone, with the WWF now pushing a much edgier and risque product, to which DX were at the forefront of. Despite getting in trouble with sponsors and television networks on almost every show, Hunter and Shawn just kept pushing the envelope.
Merry Christmas!
But the likes of the USA Network would soon change their tune once they saw Raw's climbing TV ratings, which came in no small part thanks to the work of D-Generation X. Triple H continued to build his pedigree. He was the perfect right-hand man to HBK, but it wouldn't be long until Helmsley got his chance to take center stage and led DX into battle. Number 4. The Authority and running WWE, 2013 to 2019. In 2013, the WWE finally went all in with Triple H as the lead authority figure after a stuttering first try in 2011. The game was joined by his wife, Stephanie McMahon, to become the evil figureheads of the company, known as the Authority. Through their promos and sadistic ways, Hunter and Steph laid the groundwork for Daniel Bryan's sensational rise to the main event of WrestleMania. And despite how much the chairman tried to go against the tide behind the scenes, there was no denying that Bryan was the guy the fans wanted on top. During this time, pretty much every Raw started with a promo from the Authority. This was much to many fans' dismay, but early on, the ratings showed that the viewing audience usually tuned in more when Stephanie and Triple H were on screen. Now this eventually didn't last, as the WWE would soon overkill this gimmick into the ground, but it was still in its first stages in 2013 and some of 2014. Regardless, Hunter and Steph were always able to derive a negative reaction from the fans in the building, and especially online. And this fueled the fire for the entire Daniel Bryan vs the Authority storyline. The game's match with Bryan at WrestleMania 30 told the best version of this story, with the cerebral assassin putting over Daniel in a massive way, which paved the way for the miracle on Bourbon Street that followed. The Authority's next big storyline saw them attempt to make life miserable for John Cena and a number of superstars who fought against the regime.
Team Cena with 5 men going after the Authority!
This was done to gear up for the debut of Sting, who acted as a vigilante to challenge the Authority and ultimately wrestle Triple H at WrestleMania. All the while, the game continued to play his heel role very well, which can pretty much be said for his entire run as the leader of the Authority, even when the endgame didn't call for him to wrestle a match. The storyline with the Rhodes family is a great example of this, as Hunter did all his work here on the microphone, whilst remaining such a conniving villain.
Dusty makes it about Dusty, which quite frankly is what he always does.
The game still saved some of his best performances for the big WrestleMania matches. The mixed tag where he and Stephanie faced Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle in 2018 was without a doubt the best match on the show. Hunter also did a good job in getting Seth Rollins over as a babyface the prior year. Outside of some of Triple H's personal feuds, however, the WWE had begun to rely on the Authority too much, with the product and TV ratings suffering as a result. The heel GM gimmick already seemed a bit played out when the Authority came into power, but they were still able to create compelling television up to a point. Things began to take a turn when the WWE tried to rehash the Daniel Bryan storyline again with Roman Reigns in 2015 and 16. Reigns wasn't as over as Bryan was, and the story felt very forced compared to Bryan's rise, which was far more organic. Number 3, DX leader. 1998 to 1999. Shawn Michaels' career came to an end at WrestleMania 14 due to a severe back injury. This opened the door for Triple H to become the new leader of D-Generation X. Hunter excelled in the new role to the point where we almost forgot about Shawn Michaels altogether. Helmsley brought a new spark to the group, recruiting new members in the New Age Outlaws and the returning X-Pac. DX's chemistry reached another level, while for Triple H, he was coming into his own as a wrestler. He led DX in a classic feud versus the Nation of Domination, which gave us some hilarious moments.
You know, the Croc just came from the bathroom, and you should have smelled what the Rock was cooking.
Helmsley also invaded a WCW show with the group while driving a car made to look like a tank.
WCW, open the door!
It was symbolic as the tide was about to change in the Monday Night Wars, with WWE putting an end to WCW's ratings dominance. DX were a massive factor in making this happen as they became even more over with the audience and more entertaining on screen.
We got 2 words for you.
Number 2, Evolution. 2002 to 2005. By 2003, Triple H had already solidified himself as one of the greatest of all time, a regular draw who amassed countless championships along the way. The game was ready for the next phase of his career, where he would help provide an opportunity for the next generation of talent. Enter Evolution, made up of Nature Boy Ric Flair, Batista, and Randy Orton.
Evolution has just passed you by.
Each wrestler benefited greatly from being involved with the stable. Flair found his confidence again, Orton and Batista ascended from rookies to main event superstars, while Triple H solidified himself as the best in the business. The company once again gave Hunter the ball as he went on an insanely long title reign, holding the World Heavyweight Championship for much of 2002 and 2003, as well as at the start and end of 2004. The game modeled his title run after Flair by trying to get a great match out of anyone. Hunter was the type of heel where if he said something on TV, it would usually come to fruition at the pay-per-view, typically with him retaining his title. For over 2 years, Evolution ran roughshod on the Raw roster, even holding all the titles at one stage. Orton established himself as the Legend Killer and became a successful Intercontinental Champion. Batista was the brute-like enforcer of the group, who the company made sure was well protected by rarely having him lose. Both ended up breaking off on their own and feuding with Triple H, ultimately becoming World Champion, with the game particularly putting over Batista in a massive way. Hunter continued to do some of his best work with tremendous feuds against not just Batista, but also Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit. And while the WWE product was very hit or miss during this time, Triple H's reign with Evolution remained one of the best things the company had going for it. Number 1, The Game, 1999 to 2001. DX allowed Triple H to show his true personality and become a recognized star. But if Hunter really wanted to reach true main event status, then he had to really dial in his character and take his promos to the next level so that he would be taken more seriously, and more importantly be seen as a worthy contender for the WWF Championship. Helmsley would reach this level by channeling his frustrations from the past and embracing the chip on his shoulder. The Game was ready to take his place at the top of the industry. His obsession to win the WWF Championship fueled his actions as Triple H would stop at nothing to win the gold. He generated massive heat following his marriage to Stephanie McMahon, as asshole and slut were common chants directed at the McMahon-Helmsley era. In 2000, Triple H became the cerebral assassin, which implied he was smarter and more opportunistic than other wrestlers. It was also during this year that Triple H would cement his status as a key main event player, with legendary feuds against Mick Foley and The Rock, both of which led to multiple incredible matches and moments.
Oh, thank goodness. Oh, my God. For the love of God.
And who could forget the promos, with The Game cutting some of the best of his career. In late 2000 into 2001, Hunter continued to fire on all cylinders with more great rivalries versus Stone Cold and The Undertaker, which later spawned a tag team angle that saw Triple H actually team with Austin as the two-man power trip, which was cut short due to a devastating torn quad injury suffered by the Game in a tag team match on Raw. The Game character will live on in infamy, as there were few wrestlers that the audience despised more, while at the same time Triple H was able to greatly add to his body of work by becoming the top level star he always wanted to be.
I proved that I am that damn good!
And it was off the back of this run that Triple H continued to remain a key fixture in WWE, always making tweaks and changes to his character so that he stayed at the very top of his game. Few wrestlers have had a career like Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He bounced back from a terrible gimmick and harsh punishment to kickstart one of the most legendary groups in wrestling. Then he broke off on his own, becoming a top heel to the point where he was able to start another faction and elevate those around him, all while remaining to be one of the best around. And whether you refer to him as the Game, the Cerebral Assassin, the King of Kings, or simply as Triple H, there is no denying that as a professional wrestler, he simply was that damn good. And that brings us to the end of this video. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed this one, be sure to check out our similar video where we rank the 9 best gimmicks of The Rock. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.